Morning, everybody. How you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler. Bugsy Malone's just up in front. She'll come into shot in a moment. I hope you're all happy and healthy, doing the things you love with the people that you love doing them with. Please do me a favour, guys. It really does help the channel. If you don't mind, hit the like button for me. Keeps the channel being shown to new faces. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already, only if you want to. That also helps the channel grow. But even if you have, can you double check you still are, because of YouTube shenanigans. Also hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's Tottenham transfer news, views and clues update. It's Wednesday, guys, and last night, Tuesday night, Fabrizio Romano, on his vlog, his live vlog on his website, said, when asked about Tottenham's transfer plans in January, said that Tottenham for sure are going to do some business in January, and the centre-back is a target, a primary target, but he's putting together a piece of work and he will release it tomorrow being today. So I wake up early this morning expecting to see something, but nothing has dropped yet. I'm sure but by the time I get home and have uploaded this, the official story will be out, but until then I'm left to speculate, which is okay. So we're going to talk about the players that are in the news, views and clues and go through some of the most likely targets. I'm not going to talk any more about like Lloyd Kelly and Tosin Adarabioyo, because we've heard about these guys for months. We know about them. Now, Radu Dragusin, I first mentioned him to you guys, was it 2 weeks ago when I first saw that link? I did my initial research on him, said to you guys, you know, he's a left-footed, left-sided player, he's big, tall, strapping, physically intimidating looking guy. A good player, really good with pinging balls around. I compared him using the Y-Scout tool to Victor Nelson. If you remember back in the day, I said Victor Nelson, the one outstanding part of his game is his long ball delivery. You have to go so far back chronologically in his attempts at long balls to find one that doesn't get to where it's supposed to go. And I think Radu Dragusin kind of had similar level skill sets with regards long ball pings. But where I struggled to see the value was sometimes in his first touch. He's got heavy first touch. I thought he was a little bit clumsy. And since then, I've continued to kind of watch his conflated highlights for all the games that he's played out in Italy. And again, I'll caveat all of this by saying it's a small sample size. I'm not that familiar with the player. I'm just going off of the sample sizes of what I've seen. And I don't really feel like my opinion's changed too much. I feel like he's got lots of really impressive parts to his game, but the areas where I think that he could be vulnerable are actually really important areas considering Tottenham's style of play. You know, and that really is a slight concern for me. Again, not trying to hang my hat on any particular opinion about this guy, because what's continued to also be true since my first video on him is this guy's ability to have incredible PR. I mentioned at the time, I feel like he's got one of the best agents for putting out good stories about him, and this all might be agent talk, but you know, he said he's been over to London, he's met with clubs, Tottenham being one of them. Tottenham are head and shoulders above all other clubs that are interested in this guy. He's going to play for one of European football's top 10 teams, if not this season, then next season for sure. You know, sort of really hyping this guy up, and I feel like a lot of that is just agent work. But when I've looked at him, haven't really felt like I've seen enough high quality defensive work to really have confidence in the signing being, you know, ready at the moment. Could be massively wrong on this one, because I don't watch Italian football as much as I do other European football, and certainly the Premier League. But like I say, the noise now, they started off with a small aggregator talking about it, has been picked up by the Telegraph, the Times, you know, the Mail, everyone, all of the kind of the big broadsheets as well are talking about it, and we'll find out. Maybe by the time this video will be put out, we'll have already got Fabrizio Romano's commentary on it. But we'll find out whether or not this is the name that Tottenham look increasingly likely to go for. It might be, and if it is, I hope that he's as good a player as his agent suggests he is. I can certainly see the promise, I can certainly see the good bits in his game, but when you're playing with a high line and you're encouraged to take risks, mistakes can be costly at the back. There's less time, there's less opportunity for players to get back, and I've seen Dragusin make some slips, some clumsiness, some clumsy challenges, and some heavy first touches that, worry me a little bit. But like I say, smallish sample size. He's also obviously not homegrown, right? And I don't know whether or not we're going to be worried too much about that right now. But as I mentioned before, I do think that Tottenham, are looking to maybe make easier conversations for themselves around the likes of Ryan Sessegnon, possibly Ollie Skipp, although Postecoglou seems to appreciate Ollie Skipp, and people like Ben Davies maybe in the future, even though I think Ben Davies is a very, very suitable squad player. And so if we are going to bring players in this summer, or this January rather, then is there a need to get one in, or maybe even more than one if the opportunity presents itself, that are homegrown, so that we can have easier conversations around what we're doing with regards to those numbers. Obviously we'd like to see the back of Eric Dyer, Hugo Lloris. Gio Lo Celso is another name that might want to move on this summer. Obviously Pierre Mahoybier as well. All of those players don't count as homegrown, so freeing up some space in the squad in that regard would allow us to bring in more non-homegrown players like a Radu Dragusin. But it's not necessarily the way that the story might turn out. A lot of people have been talking about Chelsea's need to liquidate a homegrown player in order to move room or find room in their FFP for future purchases. And the name that's the highest sort of calibre candidate on that list is Chelsea captain Conor Gallagher, and that player has been linked with Tottenham for most of the last part of the summer window and throughout this sort of early winter period. And I'll stick to my guns on this one. Whilst I love the player, I think he's brilliant, and I'd love to see him at Tottenham, I just don't see it happening. And I also think that I'm pretty sure that I read somewhere that Chelsea did a fan forum thing, similar to what Tottenham did a few months back. They did theirs, I think, this week, and when Conor Gallagher was asked what his proudest moment for Chelsea was, and he instantly answered being captain, or captaining the team, and there was like a massive round of applause and appreciation, and the fans started singing his name. I think that maybe sent a message to Todd Boehly that if we have to liquidate a homegrown player, it probably shouldn't be Conor Gallagher. And so then you takes you to think, well, if not him, then who else might Chelsea look to liquidate? And of course it brings you back to Trevor Chalobah, a player that Tottenham we're looking at the end of the transfer window. We're trying to get a deal done for. He is homegrown. He is a very talented centre-back. And it would be a good answer for Chelsea. They've got 4 or 5 centre-backs that they clearly favour in front of Chalobah. And maybe, just maybe, Tottenham and Chelsea might find a way to get past this sort of transfer, almost like an embargo that they have on each other's clubs. We don't really do too much business with Chelsea. But maybe this one makes sense for both parties. Tosin Adarabioyo, he's another homegrown player. I said I wasn't going to talk too much about them, but just to kind of finish the point off. Homegrown player, look, just come back from a long-term injury, and scored a goal a couple of games ago. Instantly looks sort of like back to one of his best performances, and Fulham look a lot stronger for his re-arrival. He turned us down in the summer. He wanted to go to Monaco. That didn't happen. So when you kind of put 2 and 2 together, do you see that one happening again? The fact that he turned us down, the fact that he's injury prone, the fact that he's just on his way back from injury, even though that his performances look solid. Do you want to take that risk? Don't know. Maybe, and I'd be okay with it. I like Tosin Adarabioyo as a player. And Lloyd Kelly, same sort of scenario, right? He didn't turn us down, but he is out of contract. He, will be leaving in all likelihood, but there's not a sort of short list, or there's not a short list of teams that are after him. It's more of a long list because of what he brings. His versatility. I think his physical attributes suits our system, but he's also injury prone. He's had a lot of injuries this year, so. And in recent years, so I'm not sure if Tottenham really want to get into bed with more injury-prone players, and I'm not sure of Chalobah's injury track record, but you can understand that if we're looking for someone to go homegrown, and Conor Gallagher or Kalvin Phillips, those sorts of names have been kind of bandied around at Tottenham for the last sort of 3 months since the window closed, really. There's obviously a rationale for bringing in a homegrown player, and if Kalvin Phillips there's question marks around his desire. I've heard that people are worried about his weight. He hasn't played. Why hasn't he played? What's going on there? Then, do you want to take that punt and buy someone like Kalvin Phillips? For me, I don't want to buy him. I don't want to commit to a 4 or 5 year contract on a player that I just haven't seen enough of in the last year and a half to kind of still feel confident that the player that I remember is the player that we would inherit. On his day, though, old school Kalvin Phillips was brilliant, and I think he would really suit our system. Same with Conor Gallagher. But I think that Conor Gallagher won't happen for the aforementioned reasons, and I think that Kalvin Phillips, if it was to happen, should happen on a loan with an option, not an obligation, and not a full-time purchase immediately. But those things are not priorities. Midfielders are second, third or fourth in the long line of work we need to do. For centre-back options, if it's going to be Dragusin, okay, but I've still got my concerns there. If it's going to be Lloyd Kelly, cool, but injury issues. If it's going to be Tosin Adarabioyo, cool, as long as the injury issues are behind him. And obviously, guys, there's also that sort of next name in the hat, the one that I think everybody would love to see, in Todibo from Nice, French international. For me, I did a video about him a couple of weeks ago as well. If this is possible, plausible, and again, the strength of reports on it suggests that there's some element of truth to it, then this is the one that for me elevates Tottenham to where we want to be in terms of depth, in terms of competition for places. He's a phenomenal right-footed centre-back. He can play for what it's worth in either position, but he's right-footed and right-sided predominantly. Very much responsible in no small part for why Nice have put themselves in a title race. And look, has the world at his feet as a young, I think he's 22, centre-back, with most teams in Europe, taking a look at him and having keen interest in him. As I said at the time, if we can get him, love it. Bring him in. He's absolute beast. He can do everything. He can run with the ball. He can drive with the ball. He can pass, ping. He can tackle. He can head. Clearances, interceptions. We're talking top 3 or 4 percentile for basically everything that you want him to be, and he would suit our system to a T. Reminds me a little bit of a Saliba, if I'm honest, who he'll be competing with to get into the French squad for the Euros upcoming. But for me, I don't think the story's based on merit, because Sir Jim Ratcliffe owns Nice, is on the cusp, on the brink of completing and finalising that deal to take over 25% of Manchester United's ownership and inherit full footballing control. And consequently, you would imagine that Manchester United's need for a centre-back will be fulfilled with Todibo. That said, right, the one thing I think that is possible in this story is if Tottenham were to do the unthinkable and outpay. There's a bit to chew through here, but first of all, I don't think it's likely that Nice would want to sell Todibo right now. They're in a title race technically in France, and does he want to come out of that team where he's making waves and just breaking into the first team with the French national team selections for the Euros coming up very soon? Remains to be seen. According to reports, he's keen on the move. The Manchester United thing is definitely a stumbling block, and people would point to Sesko from Salzburg, who went to Leipzig for half the price that Manchester United bid for Sesko in the last summer. I think they bid 50 and he ended up going for 25 million. But there's a special relationship between that multi-club ownership, the Red Bull ownership, where Salzburg fans don't seem to be too angry about their best players moving to Leipzig. It's a strange one for me, but Salzburg do well in their league anyway, and Leipzig obviously are doing well in their league, but it seems like there's a bit of a kind of special relationship that you don't really see the negatives of the MCO, where one team gets the benefits of another team's success stories at below market rates. I'm not necessarily sure the Nice fans would accept losing Todibo to Manchester United for a lesser fee or a lower fee than what they could have got from selling him to a Tottenham, because bear in mind that Manchester United are still up against the FFP at the moment, and so there'll be limitations on how much Manchester United can spend, and Tottenham don't really face that in the short term. So if Tottenham were really, really serious about going after Todibo and wanted to kind of outmuscle Manchester United and try to get around the obvious relationship between Nice and United, then maybe that it comes down to brass tacks and money. And I think maybe the Nice fans wouldn't tolerate playing second fiddle to United the same way that Leipzig and Salzburg have a different sort of connection, if that makes sense. We shall see. But for me, guys, if we do sign Todibo, then that's the number one name for me. Absolutely 100%. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of other names being mentioned, guys. I'm not sure I've got time to go through them all. But that's pretty much the Tottenham transfer news, views and clues update for today. Where do you see this announcement coming out? I really hope that this video will be out before Fabrizio's announcement. Because if it's not, then it's a whole waste of time. I'm still going to put it out anyway. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Do you think we could get Todibo? Is there a rationale in your head for how we can circumvent the relationship between United and Nice? Can you lean into the fans' pressure? Does it come down to money? Or are we going to have to just sort of recognise that one's going to be difficult, lower our targets, and if so, then who are you after? Dragusin, Adarabioyo and Lloyd Kelly seem to be the names at the top of the list, but maybe there's an outside chance of a Trevor Chalobah if Tottenham decide to go down the homegrown path and don't want to go after an injury-prone Lloyd Kelly and someone who didn't want us initially in Tosin Adarabioyo. Let me know, guys. Like, subscribe and comment, and as always, bye-bye.